Aransas County Special District Board of Directors.
We have a copy of the previous minutes in the,
Previous manager.
they're in the Chromebook, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I believe I was correct.
Well, this one, the one that Jeff has,
This one.
the date of three.
We'll sign.
But that's not in here.
Right.
For the corrected, it's still not uploaded, correct?
Yeah, we're having trouble. That's why we printed it.
Gotcha.
And we,
Okay.
Jeff, do you have a copy of the most?
Yes, sir. I
March 31st printed copy?
printed it out from the internet, I believe.
Excellent, excellent.
Now, the minutes were a part of what was sent out ahead of time from last year. What Travis basically the signature on call meeting to order when we get it.
It takes 30 minutes to write out Aransas County Appraisal District Board of Directors. And spot on.
Yeah,
I love those.
Considering your
Line-
salary.
line here.
Not a way.
Believe.
Right.
Jax, did you get the thing with the terms?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Just wanted to make sure that you picked that up. Yes, sir. Good. Okay, we're ready.
Okay. I call this meeting of the Aransas County President District Board of Directors to order. The records show that not only do we have a forum, we have everybody here. That being said,
That's such a man.
I was saying that.
beg pardon?
Yeah.
Anna's, that she's not part of the.
That still baffles me.
Yeah.
Don't know.
I may never get
She
comfortable.
counts to the forum, but she's not a voting member. Which, you know, that's the way somebody wrote it.
All right, consideration with respect to the minutes, I'll entertain a motion from the December 6th meeting. Anybody would like to do that? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Colleen,
Hi.
thank you. Call you out. Okay, now, item number 2. Excuse me, item number 3, citizens to be heard. Mr. Head.
Okay, I have some requests. I recently requested Tim Jaro's tax record because he's not available because he's they've got the police. And I got it back and it showed 2023 values. I know they showed this year's values. I know quite a bit of other people got this year's values. If y'all have this year's values, can you please send them out now or as soon as you have these values, get them out and not wait to such a long time?
Hang on. Are you speaking to the board or are you asking this of the district or?
I'm asking the board. I'm asking the board to do this. Can you please, and can the board please instruct the appraisal district the chief appraiser to send out the appraisals if they're completed as soon as possible? Number 2, Mr. Ward, Mr. McDavid, can you please request that the county gets their 381 agreement from the Pearl Point properties and submit that to the appraisal district so they have that when they're evaluating that property? And can you also give that to the school district who does not receive that report, but they sit on the appraisal board here also? Number 3, this coming year.
You want to give us a copy there?
No, sir, I'm just written up. This year, I'll email it to you. This year, anytime a property has had a change to their appraisal card, can you please send out that change to the property owner so that they know? I think it's important. Say the square footage of their house changed from last year, a category has changed, any sort of change. The next one is for the GLO homeowners. We have a lot of GLO homeowners who, when they enter the GLO home process, they were supposed to get their previous year's appraisal and only go up 10% from there. We've had a lot of people who have entered the GLO program who are most vulnerable, they could barely pay for the $500 taxes they paid before. All of a sudden, they have a GLO home and they have a new appraisal value that's higher than it is, it's their appraised, so now they're looking at $4,000 or $5,000 a year appraisal taxes. They can't afford this. The reason for the way the program is written was that if you have a GLO home and you have a new home built in place of your old home, you keep the old appraisal value and you only go up 10% each year. The next one and the last one is on this year's protest. If the appraisal district chooses, the appraisal district should not be able to choose somebody with a 65 and over tax freeze to be your comparative. If you're over 65, you're not incentivized to go down and protest your taxes. My neighbor explained to me she's 82 and she came down to protest her taxes and she was discouraged from doing that. So if you're discouraging over 65 people and if they're not incentivized because they're not impacted by a tax increase, their appraisal for that year should not be a comparative to mine, who does not have that under 65 tax increase and is affected by it. But and if those are the changes I'd like to see, and I will email them.
The last one concerns me a little bit because we don't have any control over the appraisal review board. We don't even nominate or appoint them.
But you choose how the appraisals will be done. That's not the ARB board does not prepare the protest against the taxpayer. That's the appraisal district itself. And you as a board can tell the appraisal district, you can create fair. It's not fair for me as a person for my property to be evaluated at market value with somebody who is over 65 and has been there for 10 years. They've had no incentive. They had no incentive for the last 10 years to come down here to file a protest because they're not affected, because they don't see an increase at all. So it's not a fair
increase in the taxes.
Pardon me?
Don't see an increase in the tax.
Don't see any increase in the taxes.
Okay, I'm gonna feel better when we got a copy of this, so send that email to me and we'll. I'll let you forget.
Does he need to send it to all of us, or can you share it with us?
Oh, absolutely. If he doesn't send it on, I'll immediately turn it on and send it to
But
everybody.
that way we have it.
Yeah, as far as open records that, open records to the board or directions to the board. There are some things that this board has the ability to do and some things that they don't. I'd like to respond to each one of your.
If I may say so first, Mike's been great, by the way, about open record requests and me asking other things. I just want you guys to know as the directors.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that vote of confidence. Most recently, Mr. Hutt requested some information from Mr. J. Rowe. I spoke with my counsel because Mr. J. Rowe falls under a section of the code that falls confidentiality. So some of the records were redacted, but only the portions that related to those confidentiality requirements. As far as the 23 appraisal, we're not done yet. As soon as those notices they go out to everybody. So as soon as I have something from Mr. J. Rowe, it'll be the same timeliness that everybody else has done, because I don't like pick and choose, like this one's done and that one's done. I do it in mass. We're called mass appraisers for a reason. We push the button on a whole bunch of them. We send out thousands of notes than one time. But when I do that, I'll be sure, if you send me an email, I'll be sure to respond to you and say, because the notice of appraised values is, I mean, anybody can get, I can get Michaela's and Michaela's can get Jack's or whatever. It's not confidential. So like you can get that, with the exception of like the, like there's a pin for like online appeals, you can't have that, but otherwise you can have the appraisal. So there's no problem with that. But if you send me an email, I'll be glad to.
If I may, I was not talking about his in particular. I was just saying that I saw his was calculated. I know other people have told me that they've received their value too. So if values are already calculated, they should go out.
Nobody's values gone out. Yes, sir.
But-
Now, people can go online and look at their most current value, but it's a preliminary value and we have not set We have not pushed the button for appraisal notice. There's a magic thing that happens when I say go. When I say go, I'm saying, like, I've sent this to all the entities, because mass appraisal is like a big old report, and I'm taking Jeff's, and I'm taking Tim Jabo's, and I'm taking Mike Soto's, and I'm throwing it into this bucket, and I throw this report to the entities, and I say go, and then the appeals process starts. So I mean,
Have the appraisals been calculated as of yet?
no, they're still ongoing.
Okay, that was my question. That's
Yes,
fine.
sir. Yes, sir. In relation to the 381 and 380 agreements, to my knowledge, I believe that the city of Rockport entered into the 381, I believe, agreement with Pearl Point. And so what essentially that did, it was an agreement between both the developers of Pearl Point, and it was the city of Rockport. And what actually happens in that agreement, it's stated there, it's a matter of public record. I mean, it's down at the county clerk's office. You probably have a copy of it. Anybody can get a copy of it. But it basically says there's a 10-year period where there's going to be some apportionment. The city says, hey, what's your tax? I'll pay 100% of that. I'll pay 90% of that. I'll pay, and it has some schedule on there that the city has said that they're going to pay it. There's no special calculation as far as the district is concerned, because the language of the agreement was that there is none. It's just that the person writing the check is actually the city of Rockport. That's the way that I understand it.
Each year they have to present their values and how much it's worth. Last year, it's part of the 381 agreement. So last year,
Yeah, I understand that that's part of the agreement, but that's part, I mean, they're, you know, what a person says the thing is worth, I don't know where their valuation's coming from. It doesn't change the fact that, like, we have that on a schedule that's congruent with equity across any other developments in that sort.
but if I come in and tell you my house is worth $500,000,
Uh-huh.
and I come in and I protest, and you say you only have 250, and I say I have 500,000,
Uh-huh.
you will take my word and you will assess it properly. These are official
No, sir.
reports. These are
No, sir.
official reports to the.
I'm responding to
Okay,
you.
yes,
The answer, like in the example that you gave, would be no, sir. Like for the purpose of mass appraisal, this appraisal district has certain standards. One is to be at market value. So then the question would be, what authenticity would Mr. Hutt have to say, like, mine's worth 500,000 or worth 750? Like, did you get an appraisal? Did you get a triplicate appraisal?
This recent 3 agreement says that the property sold for $41,000.
41
$41 million.
Yeah.
So that should not count towards the way that y'all appraise it.
We want that information. And if it's part of the agreement, we want that information.
That's what all I'm asking for.
But there's two standards. There's market value and there's equity. And so there's other sales that sell for other things of commercial properties of this type. And I'm affirming to you, just like in the example that you gave, just because Mr. Hutt comes into the appraisal district and says my property's worth 500,000, do we go to 500? Because we look at the mass of other sales and other influences of market value characteristics. And so moving on to the next thing, you want to see a change in appraisal. I think that you wanted to see when changes were to an actual property. It's the next statement.
Well, anytime there's a change to
You want to be notified.
I think the property owner needs to be notified.
And you brought this up in a previous meeting, and to me, I think you brought it to my
Yes,
attention.
sir.
I've asked my attorney, we're meeting the code just by sending you a notice every year.
Right.
So every year I'm telling you that your market value is this, is A, and then the next year I tell you your market value is B. I've met the statutory standard because I've notified you of what that value is. As far as the intricacies of each individual change, whether it's a land table or it's a main area change, or this main area went to porch or porch to main area, a particular person can ask them questions within an appeals process. But the district
Yes,
is
sir.
only required to send out, and you just need to know that the Aransas
okay.
County Appraisal District does a good job, because most districts don't even send everybody a notice every year, but they're required if they increase value.
No, sir, I'm asking the board to make that a requirement that supersedes the state standards.
And I would respectfully, even if they brought that to me, I would then bring my counsel to say that's not a requirement, a statutory requirement. And so you can ask that of them, but I would just have a respectful conversation, say I'm not.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm asking them.
Sure, certainly. Your last thing, or not your last, second to last thing had to do with GLO home. I will affirm to you that GLO homes, we get a record from the general land office periodically. It's not always perfect, but they send us a list of properties. Hey, this one over here and this one over here. So what happens is some of these houses start to get, they're getting built, and we don't know who's built them. Whether
Correct.
the citizen has built them, whether the builders built them for profit. We just know that there's an ownership of this house going up. So we pick it up in any time of the year. When we get that report, we try to reconcile that with a GLO home. And what you're referring to as far as the 10% cap was if a home had already existed on a property for which the GLO home, they signed up for this thing, they get what's called a homestead cap. And it's a great point. And I'll let you know that we're doing the best that we can. We have many properties, hundreds, I don't know, hundreds is right. Several dozen properties that have large caps. Now, what do I mean by that? The market value is actually what the market value is. So let's just say for hypothetical, it was 250. But the guy just had a mobile home that was worth, let's say 30. Well, he gets a large cap reduction. Even though his market value is 250, he's only assessed 10% more than what his previous.
Yes, sir. I'm okay with that.
And so if you want to look at that set of GLO homes, because we have what's called a property group code, we're tracking those the best that we can.
Okay.
And we do have multiple properties that have large caps. So they're not paying on the market value, they're paying on the assessed value. Do we miss some? Probably, but it's a matter of record keeping.
Okay.
And then the GLO is required to give us that report. So we're doing the best we can, and I'll affirm that to you. The last thing, as far as comps, it would be inequitable for me as the developer of the evidence for value defense. It would be inequitable for me to say that that this person and this person should not be compared because of their age. You might even throw in because of their sex or because of their race or because of their, whatever. Like you could throw in anything in there and it would not be equitable. From our standpoint, we look at just strictly the facts, this house versus that house versus that house. And we just say that they're comparative. Now, is a person that's over 65 not as incentivized to come in and protest because their value is frozen for practical sense? The answer is absolutely yes. And furthermore, I didn't write that law. Somebody else wrote that law, but it doesn't alleviate my responsibility to be as equitable as I can. So if this house and this house and this house are owned by 3 different people, that one doesn't have a homestead because they live in San Antonio. This one has a homestead. And this one has a homestead with an over 65, but they're all identical. My value defense is going to be based just on the facts of the homes. And that's the way it has to be. And so you can ask that of the board,
Yes.
but they don't have, that's going to be another one of those conversations that they don't have that authority and I don't have that authority.
Well, they have the authority, but it depends if they want to enact it.
I need to interject something here, Michael, because you made a statement that although it sounded good, really isn't quite accurate. Your property value is not frozen. Your property value continues to change according to the markets. Mine is different than it was when I turned 65. And we also have a tendency to use the phrase, your taxes are frozen. They're not, they're capped. And I think that's important because my taxes have gone down because of the method of the county choosing what their rate's going to be and what the city is going to be, et cetera. So we say things, we think we know exactly what we mean and probably understand that, but to somebody that just picks up on that language, it's often not correct.
You are, and if I said the statement that their property taxes frozen,
You did.
it's not a full understanding because there's 2 things at work. This person, in this example that I gave, this person has no exemptions, this person has a homestead exemption, and this person has a homestead over 65. In my situation, in this situation over here, they have no cap and no freeze, no calculation. It's just market value is the assessed value. In this situation, where there's a homestead, you have market value and you have an assessed value that's driven by the cap. A cap is 10 years prior to the assessed value. That's what it is. That's a cap retardation of that. It's a holding back of that assessed value. In this situation over here, you also have a cap, but furthermore, you can have a freeze that's lower that was set 10 years ago of what they were paid, and that's a levy that they're paying. That's what the point that you were making.
Yes.
So that it's a complex thing, but I think the point was for comparison purposes, I can't consider any of that. I'm just looking at the homes, and I have to compare them equally. You can ask the question, but to Jack's point, I would refute it. I mean, I would absolutely refute it. And I think that was your last one.
Yes, sir.
Have I answered your
Well,
question?
thank you guys, been more than
Sure.
generous with your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, want to stick around or?
Yeah, might as well.
Sure. Button for punishment.
Cool.
Item number 4. Consider and possible action on nominating and electing board of directors chairman and board of directors secretary. I nominate Michaela.
4.
Does anybody want to be chairman? You could,
I make a motion to nominate Michaela Olson for Aransas County Federal District Board of Directors, chairperson for the year 2023.
Wait on a second.
we have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
You want it?
I mean, that,
Are you
It's
willing,
your discussion point that you don't want it, stand up and say so.
are you willing to?
No, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I think that we need to see who, I mean, that's fine.
There's no campaigns. It's-
No, yeah, no, I mean, that's fine. I have a lot to learn in, obviously, yes, and getting organized and doing all that. That's part of, a discussion Mr. Soto and I had, but that's fine. Yeah,
I move that the
Can-
nominees be elected by.
we only have one,
What?
we only have one nominee.
Well, we need to consider secretary, we should consider them separately.
Okay.
So,
Can I make a point of discussion just briefly?
sure.
If we go ahead and we elect Michaela, my thoughts why nominating her is because there is a learning curve. And because a little bit of a learning curve, and I think it's very beneficial to have someone stay on board and help a little in the learning curve. And if we get to a point where, you know, 5 years down the road or something happens and then we don't have anybody who knows what they're doing and then somebody leaves for whatever reason. I mean, I just think it's important that we, and I don't want to call it cross training, but I think that's important. That it kind of once a year, we have consistency maybe among board members from year to year, because that helps. We don't want new board members every year, but I do think that it's important to do a little cross training. And that's just important because it's forums, and we'll have people available who want to serve. We don't always have people who want to serve, so we have a little bit of help in cross training, and I think that will be the next appointment as well.
Okay, since we're still in discussion, we haven't called for it, Mary, because there was no second to yours. The next item for us to discuss is the terms. At some point in time, the terms were changed and they're no longer staggered before my time.
Did y'all elect, did y'all?
No.
Not
You're
yet.
not
We're
decided?
discussing. We're
Because I think it's important for you to consider what I'm about to say. Everybody's term in this room expires at the end of 2023.
How did it change?
Not yes and no.
Somewhere along the way, they used to be staggered and somewhere along the way, they got unstaggered. And I don't know where it is. I'd have to do a lot of research of when that was in the past. But everybody's term does expire at the end of 2023.
Yes, the election of, or whoever the school district appoints happens in the fall, and then you're right,
That is
they finish out their term until 2023, correct?
Okay,
Well,
so, but what I'm telling you is, all 5 people sitting at the table here's term ends at the end of 2023. The school district has to take up reappointments in the fall, whatever timeframe theirs is, for January 2024.
Right, you're correct.
And and they can be either a 1 year or 2 year if somebody wants to stagger at that point.
And I think we should consider staggering so that we don't have issues.
Right.
Now, having said all that, I have no intention of seeking reappointment. I'll be glad to help you in every way possible in everything you want to do. But honestly, I'm not re-upping.
So I think that this is, again, this is ironic because this is a conversation you and I had, just you and I the other day about how this is a whole new world, correct, to a lot of people.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's a lot of things that I think needs to be organized and put into place as far as like Mr. Soto and I talked about with this, Mr. Hutt's alerting us that we have to select officers and whatnot by a certain date. Again, Mr. Soto and I talked about the fact that in the fall, I know that in August, we have to adopt a budget for the school district in order for us to open, and then in January, we do superintendent appraisals and whatnot. And so I think with the appraisal board, I think there should be a very similar timeline for those that are newbies to understand what we're about to discuss in the next quarter, since this is a quarterly meeting. So in January through March, whatever the big deal is, whether it's appraisals, whatever it is, that needs to be outlined. Because with the school district changing hands or reappointing people, I think it's only fair for new people to understand, hey, in this month, this is what you're gonna need to do. So if you need to ask any questions prior to, start researching, get that information. And so I also felt like we had talked about that there needs to be a set date and time that we're gonna meet every quarter.
We're going to handle that.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, we're kind of off base here.
Right.
We're gonna pick a date that will be before quarter end, so that if we don't have a quorum, we've got an issue, being able to bump
We
it
can,
doesn't
yes.
require us to do what we're doing today. So we'll put a date out there and try to respect it.
So I'm good with whatever. Do I think that this is definitely a joint kind of deal where we're learning? Because I think you were learning also from Dee and whatnot and Travis.
Everybody trusted me, just handle it.
I don't know. And
So-
that's where we get ourselves in trouble on anyway, right? You can't have one person handling everything. I think everybody has to be a team player.
I'm going to pen a letter to Dr. Garcia that says all three school board appointees come up for your consideration in August that will begin January 2024.
Mhm.
It would be my recommendation that the school district stagger the terms so that we're not having the tendency to fall off
I
at the
agree.
same time.
I agree.
Okay, now I just let you know that's my plan.
No, I totally agree.
Okay, you want to call for a vote?
Call for a vote.
You're okay with it?
Are you okay with it?
Absolutely.
Actually,
Do we need a second?
We have a
we
second.
have a second.
Congratulations.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. You're the one that made the motion.
Very,
And you didn't.
you started it. Okay.
Karen, is it under Aransas BOD? That's where all the stuff is, right?
Val, is it under Aransas BOD?
Make sure that you,
ARB hearing, we just looked it all up under ARB hearing and then under BOD.
yeah, Aransas BOD is the folder that you want to be in to look at all the rest of this stuff.
Okay, we need to take up secretary.
Yes.
I'll make the motion that Anna Marshall be elected as secretary going forward.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Her name is not Anna Marshall any longer.
She should have been here. I'd see what happens.
She should have been president, chairman.
I was telling Michaela the other day that at our last DP meeting, we nominated the secretary because he wasn't there, he didn't show up, and that's what you get.
That's what you get.
That's what you get when you don't show up.
You'll get a copy of this for you need today, if you don't already have one.
Everybody has,
This is the working document that tells
you're
us
welcome to
when
have
you
a copy
and
of
why.
that control website.
Okay.
I
And
give it
there's,
all the controls.
there's a couple of things in here that I will tell you
Let me
that
see
are
what's
not
under
accurate, such as we don't pick a president and you board members.
Right.
We have nothing to do with that. And yet it's still updated. I got that.
Thank you.
What year was that?
Is that Travis's?
March 2023.
Yeah, that's Travis's. Do you want one right now?
No, I just give them.
No,
I'm
thank
good
you.
about it.
All right.
So we saw vice president.
No, there is no vice.
So.
Oh, we did that
Very
last,
fair.
I thought we did that last time.
It's not on the agenda. We used to have a vice chairman, then we take it up at the next meeting. I do suggest that.
I think that
We did do that last time.
We did, 'cause you
Yeah,
were.
We did, yeah. We did.
yes.
We thought it was a good idea to have a vice
And
chair.
I still agree.
On
with
the
that.
occasion, it was not there.
Yes.
Next, time's meeting.
Yes, I think that there needs to be a vice chair.
The chairperson?
Yeah, because all we put in the agenda was chairman and secretary. Okay, moving right along.
The new chairperson?
I know, I'm going, okay, so now moving to item number 5, chief appraiser's report.
Okay, on the chief appraiser's report, what we have is we have 4 items. They're not in any particular order, so I'll just tell you about item number B, which is the upcoming audit information. I'll let you know that the auditor, Jeffrey, has most recently conducted an audit. He's formulating the report. It's the same kind of report that you heard in last year's meeting. And he's gonna present that report. I'll get that to you in advance of the next meeting.
Did you reach?
And you'll get to look through that. We get to ask all the questions about like unassigned funds, fund balance, reconciliation with all the accounts and all the rest. So I don't have that report right now. I'm just telling you that it's forthcoming. It's about to be on the horizon. So it'll be in one of the next near future meetings.
While you're on audit,
Yeah, go
did
ahead.
anybody else besides me receive the question that the auditor sends out? Okay. Karen just was told by the auditing firm, they haven't sent that out yet, which I know not to be correct. What-
So they haven't, he's asking if the auditor has sent that out yet.
No, we haven't gotten any here in the office. Usually he knows us or brings them with him.
This,
Now, but he hasn't.
this is GMS.
That's the GMS thing that I was questioning about. That was sent out.
So this is another Gallon Morales Smith, but our company is our Jeffrey is with,
Wow, that one.
Line,
he's with Gallon. So they must have sent it out to you, but we have not received it.
we received an individual.
Good.
This is why, that's what I was talking to
This is,
you about.
this is important that you read it and you answer honestly. I can't tell you how to answer it.
Right.
It's just like you read it and answer.
So
Everybody
is
wants-
that the auditing questionnaire, or is there another one to come out from the firm?
Oh, without us looking at it. Yeah, sure.
Well, Joe, it's a simple form. Are we aware of anything inappropriate or illegal as a board member?
Yes.
Then we normally get the same type of form.
My suspicion is that was sent out incorrectly from the firm because it doesn't even ask us to send it back.
I was gonna say, I didn't see anything about sending it back.
You know, this firm also- Yes.
It says yes or no and sign it. I know they didn't give me an offer.
So before we leave here, let's confirm that was to be
Yeah, I-
done properly. If there's another one come out, let's confirm.
Can I say
that.
that real quick?
Can I call it back?
Yeah, we're gonna call that.
I can refer back to you.
Yeah, can I see it before you call that real quick? I just want to make sure.
So what you want to know is, do you need to sign it?
The very fact that it didn't ask us to return it is a little disconcerting. And if that's not our auditing firm, which I thought it was.
Yeah, it is. It says Jeff Smith is an engagement partner responsible for engagement and sign the report authorized individual to sign very truly yours. And it just has the stamp of the whole thing. And it says and then you answer the question just honestly. I'm surprised that you didn't get a return envelope. And so this looks like the same type of form that we get. But we haven't in our own
Okay,
office.
so we're expecting there might be another one that you.
No,
will
sir.
send out. That's it. Okay.
No,
Yeah, it's
you
only-
get one and we get one, we both return it. I'm surprised that you didn't get a return envelope. But if you want to ask that question of Jeff. and
Or
then-
if we just scan it in and email it back to them. Because typically how it happens in the school district is Kathy sends it out to us, we
And
sign,
yeah.
and then we send it back to Kathy, and she sends them all in one attachment. So if that's the case, then if we need to scan it in, send
Okay.
it to
We can
whoever.
We got-
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so. Say again?
Well, I kept saying, when I was calling that, because I called legal on it, and I was like, I'm not gonna sign this if I don't have an attorney that can represent me, whether it's, does the appraisal board have an attorney that represents us, or does the school district represent the three? So anyway, we kept saying GSM because it's GMS, and they were like, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, it's GMS. It's like,
So there's two things. One, yes,
we'll get on that.
yeah, so that audit form questionnaire is normal for you to get. The timing of you getting it before us, I don't know, because we don't ask those questions. We get them in the office, everybody gets them, they write what they write, they answer it honestly, and they turn it back in.
I think it's a control point. It's one extra opportunity for them to get it out, get it signed, get it back.
Yeah,
As awkward as that's word it is. Okay, where are we, Mike? I'm sorry, I had a lot of information.
not a problem. So the very next one that we have is, yeah, is,
Give it back.
is the certified role changes. It's a supplemental appraisal role presentation. Best way to look at it, it's certified role changes. I think it's the fifth one to the right. Did Val come by and check your, as you know, we have new Chromebooks. The reason we have Chromebooks and we don't have our tablets anymore is because Amazon Fire is no longer supporting their software, and they told us that they were going to stop doing that. So we're using our Google Drive now. So that's the reason something's new. So forgive us for working through all the kinks. But the certified summary of certified role changes, Larry, you can see in here you have groups number 444 all the way down to 459. And you'll see these are things that you're familiar with in the past. Are either chief appraiser motions, or homestead cap recoveries. They're either joint motion to correct or property owner's motion to correct. And I've said this illustration many times, but here's the certified totals, right? And if you have a certified totals, it's like a scroll. And it's handed to the ARB. And the ARB takes its little signet ring with the wax, and they put it on the scroll, and they say, this is 2022. Now, anytime there's a change to that, they have to break the seal. We have to go through this report. We have to say, hey, somebody applied for a homestead exemption. Like, yeah, they get that. Somebody won a lawsuit arbitration. Yeah, there was a reduction in value. What's another one? Sometimes they'll do what's called the chief appraiser motion to correct. Hey, somebody brought us a deed that showed a survey that the land is actually more than what we had, so we increased the value. Whatever it is, they unroll the scroll, they make the change, and they re-scroll it, and then they put their signature on it in. This is a report that we're required to tell you about, but you have no authority on really saying. You can ask me questions, but you don't, like, this board doesn't have that authority. So I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have. Supplement groups, 444, 445, 446, 447, 448, all the way down to 494 or 459, I'm sorry. There's a lot of red, there's a lot of reduction.
Is there a key that says what the group means, like group 444?
Group 444 is an internal, like it's a county role. Like we open up what's called a supplement group. And we say, there's times when the supplement group is not open, but when we open it, then we say, okay, you can make changes to the system. And so any changes that are made associated with the unscrolling and the redoing, then can happen. And then we close that supplement and it's sent to Anna, like the corrections are made. So, and then the next one is open. So the 445 is just the next one. It's
Chronological.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we've talked about like the sections of the code, 2525 being associated with supplemental role changes, 2525Ds are typically like a value correction, that somebody filed late or something like that. Chapter 41 is typically appeal or lawsuit. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Where's the lawsuit on here?
I know you should.
There was a lot of, yeah, there was a big one, yeah, 449, big lawsuit.
Where is that? I'm sorry.
That's 716,379.
There was page number.
It was page 2, group number
But he's got the
449.
packet on that. Erica.
So obviously, when we do budget, with appraisals going up,
Lots, legal
legal will
it's really-
need to,
We're about to go into our financial report, financial snapshot, and you'll see. Even though we've made good effort in increasing that budget item, that line item, you'll see that we've fallen short there too, so.
And that was,
That's after the big
That's
push
nothing,
that,
yeah.
I mean,
we push.
Travis, and well, you and Michaela, you and Travis were the big pushers of like, let's get that out the door, so.
So just out of curiosity on, that's a reduction of $700,000. That's obviously only big relative to the value of the property, but what, that doesn't tell me what the value of the property is. I mean, the $30 million property. It's not really a big deal. If it's $1 million property, then we missed the pattern, you know what I mean? Do we have, how do we know that?
We have the supplemental group, we have the detail on that one. I could give you the actual property ID. If you wanted to know, but there's, again, there's nothing you can do, but I'm glad to get you the information.
I don't need it now. I don't need it now. I would like to know just historically lawsuits and how much we're winning or losing on our lawsuit compared to the actual value of the property,
Right.
just to know.
I will tell you, local administrative judges, require, mediation. Sometimes those mediations are successful, sometimes they're not. I'm having to do all of those. I hear what you're saying, like, all the time, like, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is this a good use of legal resources? Like, do I want to push this all the way, or do I just take an L in this? And sometimes the L's are big, you know, like, I have to weigh all my options.
No, I understand, and I just really want to wrap my head around it, and then, because I know that sometimes I get it. I just would like to see the
Well, and
Yeah,
I think that's
big picture.
especially with what's about to come. I mean, you're gonna have a ton of people start protesting and whatnot, and just to know where we stand on, you know,
Yeah.
legal, what our track record's been to where it's gonna be. because
I
we've
can't
been
even tell
going.
you what a comment would be. I just feel like it's important to kind of know how this would like
yeah,
to
you
know.
want understanding so that, when you're asked in the middle of.
We have to set a budget, and we have to set a budget based upon the activity we expect, and I don't know that that will be indicative. Supporting helping the budget, but it's just a.
So
I would like
so
to know
the
more.
answer is I can absolutely get you details on any one of these. This is a summary, it's a summary level. It's kind of a high overarching.
And I'll ask you for more details about one. I really just want to know, it's 30 million and on a lawsuit with 30 million and we reduced it by 700,000, or it was $1 million, we reduced it by $1 million, you know, and then
Yeah.
a little more details, I can talk to you and you can give me that.
Here's kind of a generic question, Michael. Are any of these that are these sizable numbers containing business personal property additions, or are they just units?
Some of them are actually, they're in, those would be either what's called joint motion to corrects. Typically, they're not lawsuits, and I can't think of anything that's business personal property that's that big that would constitute a change in that
Okay.
magnitude.
Right.
They're typically real property accounts or industrial accounts.
Got it.
We have some big industrial accounts,
Okay.
but I'm gonna get you some details so you can understand the scope. Yeah. Any other questions about the supplemental appraisal roll presentation? Okay, so we're gonna move back and move into,
Hey, feel free on the lawsuits if we won any, you know. If those.
let you know.
Oh, I just want the losers, I mean, if we. had
what the
the-
average, the percentage.
I just want to see each one and see what was the value, do we win or lose, and that's all.
You know, and that's the weird thing. I'm gonna show you what we've won. I can get you that information. But you'll never see it in a supplemental roll, because what happened
That's.
is we have the scroll and it
I
has the value.
No, I-
So it's not changed.
realize, yeah,
Yeah.
we're just seeing that, that's okay.
Okay, so we're gonna move into the financials. If you'll look through, we're gonna look at 2022 first, which is January through December. It's last year's budget. And we're gonna go through line items there. We're gonna look at that as a whole. I think what I'd like to bring to your attention first is, the bottom line in red. We're $52,000 over budget in change. We're 4% over budget. You will soon see the reason why we were over budget. Because if you look at that $52,000 and then go back up to legal. And legal, we were budgeted at 45,000 and we had $107,000 worth of legal fees. There's $62,000 delta there. And that's the budget buster. And so it's stuff we were just talking about. Oh, were you having trouble finding?
No, we got,
Okay, good.
How'd you do it?
go to, see if you refresh yours. I think it was one of the ones that came in.
It's called appraisal. Appraisal BOD. Appraisal BOD is the folder. Okay.
I know, I think he doesn't have to update this.
It's for your total legal expenses.
107 and change.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Larry, you good? You good?
Here, let me switch.
Yeah, some of these done, they weren't
I'm sorry, guys.
updated.
It's a, like I said, it's a new system that we're trying to.
Changing everything, okay?
No, right?
Yeah, sure. Is it not in the hole? Not all, it's sweet low, only sweet low. Don't want you munching on that.
So legal budget reason high, we gotta just get the candy.
Right.
So we did 107 for 22.
Now, in 23, you budgeted, and we're about to get to that one, you budgeted 70 and change.
But 22, we spent 107, and we,
We budgeted 40.
at the time, we didn't have the end, we went up from 45 to 75, and we ended the year at 107, so
This is.
our current budget doesn't meet what we spent last year either.
No, but, there's some hope that we got some bright shining stuff, at least a little bit. From my standpoint, we have some really good traction on our current lawsuits, on 2 of our current lawsuits, we have some really good, like it's looking good. And so we're not gonna take an L, but it doesn't change the budget because those attorneys are still fighting for us. So,
It is what it is.
yeah,
And I do think it would be prudent to next meeting consider a budget adjustment since we know this past year we've already not quite doubled.
right, which is relevant to the point, like Travis, that you're like, we're about to get the audit, we're about to see what our unassigned funds are. And if you want to push any of that to legal, you're welcome, you can do that in a budget amendment.
We can do it, we're then gonna have to replenish it, so we can either amend the budget or we can use assigned funds and
That's correct.
put more in assigned, you know.
You know where I'm going with that.
Yeah, you know, it's gonna be,
Is there a reason for the increased legal fees?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We had an increase in lawsuits and the level of the level that we've taken, like, we're just about to actually go to court on one of them here in about a month. For one that existed, but it's been worked on for years. And whenever you have to do a complex commercial assignment, we have an opinion of value, but it's often requested and required as far as what's called an expert witness. And part of that expert witness money is tied up in a commercial appraiser, and they're doing their own analysis of what that property is worth. And that's why I said, a lot of this is good news because we're actually proving those people are affirming our number. And, you know, we haven't gone to court on that one, but it's looking good. It actually bodes well that our numbers were actually accurate because you had an outside source verifying our number, or they're really close to our number. So that brings us a lot of, like, we're doing a good job. It just doesn't make the legal number go down. It's just because it all costs money.
And the longer these go on.
That's correct.
Well, in fact, it's often a strategy used to
Yes.
lead you until you give it up.
Yeah, there's no recompense, so there's no damages on the other side. We just take the legal L, as it were, legal cost L. And, you know, that's the property owner's right. It's written that way for a reason. I mean, I understand. I mean, you want property owners to be able to sue if they feel like their property is wrong. So I don't have a good answer other than we're just taking a budgetary loss here, you know. Is there, I want you to look over those, and the reason that I have that percentage to the right-hand side is you can see whether we're on budget, we're under budget, we're a little bit over budget, whatever those items are. And it's, you go down that list, we're doing really good. I guess the advertising and legal notices was a little bit out of whack, but that's a pretty low ticket item number. You know, we're from 2,600 to 4,900, so that doesn't cause me any angst. The bookkeeping, 111, that's not really a big deal. That's only like a $700 item. You know, that's not a big angst.
What's the IT replacement, like, you got Chromebooks, use the budget?
That's on the IT replacement for tax office, or is that the one down at the bottom?
On IT is one, is that
Yeah.
the tax office reimbursement deal or?
Remember, Travis, this is always the one you have to look to the right-hand side, and it says half is paid by tax office.
There you go.
So-
So it wasn't our Chromebook.
No, no. What it is,
That could be on insurance, right?
we have to carry this as our portion, but if you go to revenue, you can see the other $7,500 that was paid by the tax.
Yes, I remember that whole.
You remember that?
I believe we've done this.
We've talked about this before.
You put a note on there for me. And
I did. I can highlight the whole thing orange next time.
I'll probably still ask, but it's highlights.
That's right. Obviously, you can see the big overage is in the 238% of legal services. You know,
Not.
that's where it's at. That's why we're over budget. I'll entertain any questions.
You've been entertaining me,
All right.
Entertaining.
Moving on to the next financial report, which is, it says 2023, January through February. Now, what you'll see is a reflection on the left-hand column of the 23 approved budget line items. And then you'll see that January and February represent approximately 17% of the year's calendar. 17% as far as the budgetary amount of time. And so you can just look at a snapshot and see whether we're in budget or out of budget within that particular line item. There's many things that we haven't even paid anything on. There's some things that we've paid the whole year for it because sometimes it's just a one-time payment from a particular company or something like that. But you can look at the overall thing and you can see that we're 20% running at 17%. None of that causes me any angst right now. And I don't think it should cause you any angst. We're, you know, this year we're moving on okay. If you want to look specifically to legal services, we're right on target right now, 17%. That was the silver lining I was talking about. We're right on target for the $72,000 budget for the 23 year.
We
And
got a big overreach in aerial photography.
aerial photography.
No, we don't. Excuse me, I'm misreading it.
Sorry.
I'm misreading it.
Yeah, aerial photography is one of those one time a year things. They just send us one bill and we pay it early and that's it.
Okay.
That's why I said some of them have zero and some of them pay the whole thing, so. On the right-hand side, you can see the apportionment of the taxing units and how much they paid us. And then what is due, there's another calculation spreadsheet right there. I'll answer any questions.
All right, if this, comes back with, there's a different.
Jeff, if you want to stop any of those, that'd be great.
Larry's from what is so messed up, so it's. Seems to be.
Any questions on that or can I move on? Okay, moving on to the future board directors meeting date discussion. So first and foremost, I want to thank our esteemed guest, Mr. Hutt, for pointing out the very obvious statutory standard. It was a failure on my part to get the board together in a timely fashion. Furthermore, I made matters worse by not having a statutory agenda item on the initial agenda, in which, I needed to have that on. It's required. I missed it. All I can say is that I'm sorry, and we'll try to do better. I'll try to work with the board in a way that helps us. And part of that is this next discussion, which I forwarded to you in an email, which is with basically the tax calendar for the property taxes. For us, it's the property tax calendar. It helps me communicate with the board to say, hey, listen, we got this coming up at this time. It's probably good that we have it on the agenda in advance. Also, what you'll see is this manual. It's a really good manual. You can see it was produced in late of 22. Appraisal District Director's Manual has really good information. It tells you about the duties, which you probably already know. What are the basic duties that the board does? You provide for the operations of the district. You evaluate, hire, and fire the chief. You do a budget, and you do budget amendments. Those are the main duties that you have. But you have a whole plethora of other smaller duties, and they're outlined in that manual. It's good. I think that all of you should read it. And if you have questions or like, hey, I don't know that we're doing this really well or whatever, let's bring it up in one of the future meetings. I want to put the next meeting on a calendar. I actually want to put the next 3 meetings, at least 3 more meetings. Let's get those budgetary, statutory ones out of the way. But what I'm saying is like we should do something in early April to get the next quarter statutorily checkbox or checked. And we can do that on the 10th, which would be that Monday. That would be a Monday. What do y'all think about that? Okay.
So it's the 10th of March.
Yeah, 2 o'clock, same time.
Just a question, kind of a personal nature. The 10th Monday is remaining portion of Easter.
Oh,
Easter
no.
Monday. And so
We can,
does your staff is staffed here?
absolutely.
Okay. I don't have a problem with it. Mondays are generally as good or better than other days, so.
I don't know that we'll have much on that agenda because we just presented a supplement. So if we have another supplement that comes to between now and then, if we do have the audit in a timely fashion, and what I mean by timely is that if I have the audit in my hand Monday or Tuesday of next week, I think that we can present that in the agenda for that Monday. So I'm talking the 3rd or 4th of April.
So then,
Excuse me, Jeff. I don't want to have that audit reviewed by the board until we have had an opportunity to read through it, ask questions, and be ready to go in. I don't want to sit here with an audit that we haven't seen.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It would be a week before is not timely enough.
Yes, sir. If you said that, I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Or I didn't hear correctly.
I'm
so
saying
you're saying you could get it to us on the 3rd or the 4th?
if I get it the 3rd or 4th, it will be in your possession and it will be on the agenda.
Okay.
If I don't have it by the 3rd or 4th, then I don't think you can consume that in 3 days.
No.
You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay, so then it would not be on the agenda, but I still think we should meet just to get our statutory requirement of like we have to meet once a quarter kind of.
But if there's not enough information to go over by April 10th, since today is March 31st.
Right.
Do you, and not just to mark it off our list, but to be effective, would you rather have moved it to later in April or beginning of May?
We can't.
What's your deadline of,
Yeah, and I was gonna ask this about
I don't want to just meet.
we can just present the supplement detail to the board with in absence of a meeting, right? To meet that statutory requirement.
Right, it should
So-
go out by email in the first 10 days.
That's correct. So we can present the supplemental detail like we did at the January 10th. You probably don't remember, but you got the supplemental detail. We can do the same thing. We don't have to meet. So
It's nothing that we have to approve anyway.
that's correct.
Right.
So if we want to push it off until you have that in your possession for a good 10 days and you're like, oh, I've chewed this up, I'm ready to ask questions for the audit. Then you just communicate with me, Michaela, you can just communicate with me and tell me when you want to meet. Or you can put a date on the calendar right now.
Well, I say if I had the worst case scenario is you'll have it by the week of April 10th, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so would one full week and a weekend be enough for everybody to review to where you can have it, say, midweek, like April 19th?
We have a meeting on April 19th, the ARB, so we can do it either the 18th or the 20th.
The ARB should just be the morning.
That's correct.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so there's.
Well,
just
then what
one-
if we did,
No, April 19th works. If we're just doing the ARB in the morning. Are you sure?
Well, I can't be 100% positive, but that is the way it looks.
I will say that your auditor is not going to present the audit without everybody having a turn the question there. And that's still kind of up in the air.
We can tentatively make one for the 18th and see if we get all that stuff back in.
everybody,
Well, it's not, that we just need to tell them, they gotta get it in our hands for us to finish it.
Yes, sir.
And it will only be a check the box issue for them unless somebody says they are with it.
would there be more information coming through that would be more prevalent for us or more information coming through to where we should move the meeting to even the beginning of May? Are you gonna get anything that we need to know, or when's your next deadline?
Remember, I like to meet in early May to get all the budget questions out of the way so that by the time that June 10th, because June 15th is the statutory requirement for you to submit a budget to all the entities.
Okay,
But remember, what I like to do every year is I like to have a meeting at least 3 or 4 weeks before that time to get all the questions answered so that everybody feels good about the budget, so that when the day comes for you to submit the budget, all those questions have been answered. It's just, it's just a matter of like, here we go.
So to Michaela's point, can we just meet the beginning of May?
yeah,
And
but
then-
can we just combine that into the
Yeah,
beginning
we've
of
done
May
it
to where we
before,
don't
yeah.
have to have multiple meetings?
It makes for maybe a longer meeting depending on how many
But-
questions are on the audit, but we talk about the. Finances every meeting too, so the budget,
The thing-
I'd rather do it all at once.
May 4th,
Okay, we can do that.
May 3rd, May
My
4th.
only caution to that is that you will have in your possession the audit, and you will see the unassigned funds. You need to have an idea that you're gonna have a position about those unassigned funds as it relates and thinking forward to next year's budget. And as long as you feel comfortable that you can handle it in one day, then I'm okay with that. We can have a long day. and do
Feel
it.
the same unassigned funds that have been there for the last.
It's gonna be
10 years.
different. It's gonna be different this year by a large. degree.
Oh,
Because
Because
there's a
we've spent
higher
the money to
number.
build this. Remember, we had the other place destroyed. We had that money in there. We bought this place, but we had money left over. We got the flood, so we got more insurance funds. And we spent that money here. And so now our unassigned funds are way less. They're way different than they've been the last couple of years. So I'm okay with doing one meeting, but you just need to understand what you're getting. You're in for a long day. Michaela?
Well, this is a team. I don't know what,
What do you want?
What would y'all
We can
rather do?
it Either way.
I mean, I'd rather,
that's gonna be for one meeting.
Okay,
You
but
know,
then
that's-
can we do
I'd
it-
rather just knock it out in one.
okay,
That way, honestly, I don't like doing it and then coming back full saying, remember,
I
we did it 4 weeks before, I'd rather do it in one.
how about May, like that week of May 9th?
May 3rd, maybe?
I'm out of town.
Okay, May
Can
9th.
you do, is May 9th
May
too
9th,
late?
May 9th at 2 P.M.
Okay, does that work for everybody else?
As far as I know now.
Okay.
So we're not doing April.
Not
We're not
doing
doing April
April.
10th.
We're gonna do the 2:00 and May 9th.
So having said that, in setting that date, just know that the operations of the district or by that time, we will have pushed our button, we will have sent notices out, and there'll be a lot of activity going on. So April, or May 9th is going to have to be excluded from the ARB potential schedule, or at least that morning, I'm sorry, that afternoon, yeah, that afternoon. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I will say to you, Michael, we've CAD meetings typically at 2 o'clock, but there's no magic to that.
Can we move it? I mean, earlier, would it work for anybody?
Earlier time frame?
Like earlier in the day? Like,
Anna's the one that's always the hiccup with the two. She likes the two, but I mean, it's whatever.
Okay, well, let's set it at 2.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then we'll move
Okay,
forward.
I'm just leaving that door open. Do you want to set a meeting further, or do you want at that time to set the next
Let's
meeting?
set it and then we'll start seeing the pattern of what your deadlines are. We're gonna mark it down on a calendar so that we can start saying, hey, this is the 3rd Wednesday or whatever it is.
So you know, though, past that May meeting, we have to meet again before June 15th, correct?
Yes,
So we do have, so we're practicing budgeting in May.
But the next one should be a real quick.
yes.
Yes,
That's what we, because you don't want any hiccups,
Right.
because you're making a budget to the entities and you don't want any,
Right.
you want all the questions
So we
answered.
can hypothetically meet like June 13th for the 10 minutes of saying. And
Yes,
then move forward.
that's correct.
Public.
But there is a public,
Yes.
it's a public hearing, so you kind of open the public hearing, you hear from the public. But essentially in that May meeting, you've run through all the hiccups, so you as a board are able to answer any questions about like, yeah, we've considered that, but we're moving to whatever.
Okay.
The only thing I would suggest is, Michaela, between now and the next meeting, that you and I sit together after you've read this.
Yes.
And any questions that you may have, like, let's try
Get
to
through
be
it, I agree.
proactive. And again, I apologize for the hiccup. I'm grateful to Mr. Hutt that he brought that to our attention and that we were able to meet the standard. So that's all I have at this point.
And I can just update on the lawsuit amount of the 700,000 plus. That was actually the settlement of 4 lawsuits.
Okay, so 4 separate lawsuits. Thank you, Val, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got both on the calendar.
Good job.
You're welcome.
My
Well, you
calendar.
should only have one.
I don't know.
May 9th. Delete May, April
2
10th.
o'clock.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
Delete
You know
April
what?
10th. It should only be May 9th. And then we're gonna add the May 9th, we'll decide whatever day we need to meet for however long we need to, you know.
What's good in
Yeah.
June.
That
In
works.
answer, before we adjourn, in answer to your question, they have new staff members at this audit place. And they said they didn't know that they had to put in that in the mail, and you can email your responses to that.
Thank you.
You can email, I think that's Candace, or y'all,
That's good, thank you.
everybody's got one?
Yes.
So that's the answer to that question. And yes, you should expect one, and if you haven't, then can answer the question honestly.
Well, and if I mailed it, which I did. then
No,
you have it.
you're good.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
Probably gonna need another one.
You Larry, they do the same thing. If you didn't have a return envelope in it, it went to trash.
Probably gonna need another one.
Like,
No, you know what? I'll scan mine in.
mail it or scan it?
He's right away
Filed it,
You mean circular filed it?
yeah.
in the trash.
File 13,
I'll scan mine in and email it over to you because it has the base name.
that's fine, yeah.
And mine
Same
are-
document, we know return envelope, yeah.
Okay.
You just said, I don't know what this is, but
Ready? I get it every year.
As well. I have mine. I'll scan it
But
in,
you-
email it to y'all and then
circular filed it this year?
he's talking about it went into the trash.
That's the,
Yeah,
that's the trash, the circular.
the circular.
Thank you, guys.
I know, you're,
Not the same
sacred
way.
market.
File 13, yeah.
You're a sacred market, and I know.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
So,
Do it in the trash. All right.
can you reach out to
I'm gonna-
the board members and make sure that they get another one?
Yes, I'm gonna scan it in and email it over to you guys. Jack already took care of his. You've already done yours. I haven't signed mine. I was waiting for legal.
I'm glad y'all know.
Yeah, no, I know.
So what was the story of legal? You said we were going to do this.
We off,
Yeah, I didn't know if you moved that part of the meeting.
we off.
I don't know. we're
Not
not
until
there.
you adjourn,
Okay.
and be careful,
Anything-
because, be careful, as soon as you adjourn. You're still a quorum, so you
Yeah.
can't have things
Yeah.
outside of open meeting, so
Yeah.
if you wanna have a one-on-one conversation, you can do that. But it's like,
Can't take action.
you
There- and there's
you have to disband and like,
Yes.
so just. You good?
Yeah.
Yes, we're gonna only brought it up because I thought it was something we're talking about in the meeting later. If we're not gonna do that, but
Chairman need not call for a motion to adjourn. She may say simply we are adjourned.
Say that it's 3:17 and we are adjourned.
There you go.
All right, thank you.
Good job.